There are places on this earth where time itself seems to bend, where ancient stones whisper secrets that our modern minds struggle to comprehend. Hidden beneath layers of earth and centuries of silence lie artifacts so extraordinary, so impossibly advanced, that they force us to question everything we think we know about human history. Tonight, we're embarking on a journey into the unknown, exploring 9 archaeological mysteries that have left scientists scratching their heads and historians rewriting textbooks. These aren't just curious oddities gathering dust in museums. These are game changers, paradigm shifters that suggest our ancestors possessed knowledge and capabilities that shouldn't have existed according to our current understanding of the past. So, grab a snack, get comfortable, and prepare to have your worldview challenged, because what you're about to discover will make you wonder, just how much of our ancient history have we gotten completely wrong? From mysterious stone spheres that predate human civilization to Viking swords forged with technology that wouldn't be rediscovered for centuries, from ancient maps showing continents that were supposedly unknown to mass graves hidden in the clouds of the Himalayas, each of these mysteries opens a door to questions that mainstream archaeology isn't quite ready to answer. But here's the thing, while most people will scroll past content like this without a second thought, you're still here. That tells me you're one of the few who actually cares about uncovering the truth. If you want to stay ahead of the crowd and never miss discoveries that could rewrite history, hit that subscribe button now, because what I'm about to show you next will make you question everything. Deep in the heart of the Bayanharula Mountains, where the borders of China and Tibet blur into myth and legend, lies one of archaeology's most controversial discoveries. In 1938, Chinese archaeologist Qi Puti was leading an expedition through these remote peaks when his team stumbled upon something that would challenge everything we thought we knew about ancient human contact with. Well, something not quite human. The caves they discovered weren't natural formations. These were carefully carved chambers, their walls adorned with pictographs depicting strange figures with elongated heads and spindly limbs. But it wasn't the cave paintings that sent shockwaves through the archaeological community, it was what they found scattered across the cave floors. Hundreds of stone discs, each one perfectly circular, measuring exactly 9 inches in diameter. At first glance, they might have seemed like ancient pottery wheels or decorative plates, but closer inspection revealed something far more extraordinary. Each disc contained a precise hole at its center, and spiraling outward from that central point was a groove so fine it resembled the track on a modern vinyl record. But here's where it gets strange. Etched within these spiraling grooves were thousands of tiny hieroglyphic symbols, so small they could barely be seen with the naked eye. The craftsmanship required to create such intricate markings on stone would challenge even today's precision instruments. Yet these artifacts were clearly ancient, covered in the patina of millennia. The mystery deepened when researchers attempted to date the discs. Carbon dating of organic material found alongside them suggested an age of approximately 10,000 to 12,000 years, placing their creation at the dawn of human civilization, long before any known written language existed. For decades, the Dropa Stones remained a curiosity, filed away in Chinese museums and largely ignored by Western archaeology. That changed in the 1960s when Dr. Tsumam Nui, a professor at Beijing's Academy for Ancient Studies, claimed he had successfully deciphered the mysterious symbols. According to Dr. Nui's translation, the stones told an incredible story: the crash landing of a spacecraft carrying beings called the Dropa, who came from a star system beyond our own. These visitors, stranded on Earth, attempted to integrate with local human tribes but were met with fear and hostility due to their unusual appearance. The stones, according to this interpretation, served as a historical record of first contact between humans and extraterrestrial visitors. Mainstream archaeology, as you might expect, rejected these claims entirely. Critics pointed out that Dr. Nui's translations were never peer-reviewed, and attempts to verify his work proved frustratingly elusive. The Chinese government, citing the sensitive nature of the discovery, restricted access to the stones, making independent verification nearly impossible. But the story doesn't end there. In the 1990s, German researchers claimed to have gained access to some of the discs for scientific analysis. Their findings were nothing short of astonishing. The stones contained high concentrations of cobalt and other rare metals, giving them unusual magnetic properties. When examined under electron microscopes, the grooves revealed a level of precision that suggested they had been created using advanced machining techniques, not the primitive tools available 12,000 years ago. Even more puzzling, spectrographic analysis revealed that the stone composition was unlike anything found naturally in the region where they were discovered. The materials appeared to be of extraterrestrial origin, or at the very least, they had been subjected to processes that altered their fundamental molecular structure. Today, the Dropa stones remain locked away in Chinese museums, their secrets carefully guarded by authorities who seem more interested in suppression than revelation. Independent researchers continue to be denied access, and the few photographs that exist of the discs are heavily controlled and often contradictory. This leads us to the ultimate question. If the Dropa stones are merely primitive pottery or astronomical calendars as skeptics suggest, why all the secrecy? Why not allow unrestricted scientific examination that could easily debunk the extraterrestrial theories once and for all? The answer might be more unsettling than we're prepared to accept, because what if the stones really do contain proof that we're not alone in the universe, and we never have been? And that's just the first mystery. I've spent months researching these discoveries that mainstream archaeology doesn't want you to know about. While others are getting their facts from outdated textbooks, my subscribers are getting the real story. Don't let yourself fall behind. Subscribe now because the next mystery involves technology that shouldn't exist. Our next discovery is about swords that were forged with impossible steel. In the cold, misty waters of European rivers, archaeologists have been pulling up artifacts that shouldn't exist. These aren't just any ancient weapons. These are masterpieces of metallurgy that were created using technology that wouldn't be rediscovered by European civilizations for another 800 years. Meet the Ulfberht swords, and prepare to have everything you thought you knew about medieval craftsmanship turned completely upside down. Between the 9th and 11th centuries, when most of Europe was struggling through what we call the Dark Ages, someone was forging weapons that were so advanced, so impossibly superior to anything else being made at the time, that modern metallurgists are still scratching their heads trying to figure out how it was done. The first thing you notice about an authentic Ulfberht sword is the inscription. Engraved along the fuller, that's the groove running down the center of the blade, is the name Ulfberht in distinctive Frankish letters. But this isn't just a maker's mark, it's a guarantee of quality that medieval warriors would have killed for, literally. These swords were the Ferraris of their time, the ultimate status symbol for Viking raiders and Frankish nobles alike. But here's what makes them truly extraordinary. They were made from crucible steel containing a carbon content of 1.5%, a level of purity and strength that European smiths wouldn't achieve again until the Industrial Revolution. To understand just how impossible this should have been, we need to dive into the science of medieval metallurgy. During the 9th century, European ironworkers were using bloomery furnaces that could barely reach temperatures of 1,200 degrees Celsius. The steel they produced was inconsistent, filled with impurities, and prone to breaking under stress. A typical sword of the period would have been made from pattern-welded iron with small amounts of steel welded onto the cutting edges. But Ulfberht swords? They were forged from homogeneous high-carbon steel throughout their entire length. The level of purity is so extreme that some specimens contain less than 0.02% of impurities, a standard that wouldn't be matched in European manufacturing until the 1800s. Dr. Alan Williams, a metallurgist who has spent decades studying these weapons, puts it bluntly: to make a sword like this in the 9th century should have been impossible. The technology simply didn't exist. Yet here they are, dozens of them, pulled from riverbeds and excavated from burial sites across northern Europe. Each one represents a level of technological sophistication that challenges our entire understanding of medieval capabilities. The mystery deepens when we examine the steel itself under electron microscopes. The carbon is distributed evenly throughout the metal matrix, something that requires precise temperature control and sophisticated knowledge of metallurgy. The steel shows signs of having been repeatedly heated and cooled in a process remarkably similar to modern industrial techniques. But perhaps most puzzling of all is the source of the raw materials. The steel used in Ulfberht swords contains trace elements that suggest it originated in India or Central Asia, regions where crucible steel technology, known as wood steel, was indeed being produced during this period. But here's the problem: there are no historical records of trade routes that could have brought this rare and expensive material to Frankish territories in the quantities needed to produce these weapons. We're talking about steel that was literally worth more than its weight in gold, being somehow transported across thousands of miles of hostile territory, through multiple kingdoms and empires, to reach craftsmen who supposedly didn't even have the technology to work with it properly. And then there's the question of the forging process itself. Creating a sword from crucible steel requires not just the right raw materials, but also precise knowledge of temperature control, timing, and techniques that were closely guarded secrets in their regions of origin. How did Frankish smiths acquire this knowledge? Who taught them the methods that had taken Asian craftsmen centuries to perfect? Some historians have suggested that Viking raids brought both the steel and the knowledge back to Europe, but this explanation raises even more questions. The Vikings were certainly accomplished traders and raiders, but they weren't known for their metallurgical expertise. How would they have recognized the value of wood steel technology, let alone convinced Asian masters to share their most valuable secrets? Archaeological evidence suggests that Ulfberht swords were being produced in multiple locations across the Frankish Empire, implying a level of technological transfer and manufacturing coordination that seems impossibly sophisticated for the time period. We're not talking about one genius craftsman stumbling upon a new technique. This was an entire industry producing weapons that were centuries ahead of their time. The swords themselves tell a story of incredible craftsmanship. The blades are perfectly balanced, with a flexibility that allows them to bend significantly without breaking, yet they maintain cutting edges sharp enough to slice through mail armor and bone with equal ease. Modern sword makers, using computer-controlled furnaces and precision instruments, struggle to replicate the exact properties of these ancient weapons. But here's where the mystery takes an even stranger turn. As suddenly as Ulfberht swords appeared in the archaeological record, they vanished. By the 12th century, no more authentic Ulfberht blades were being produced. The technology that had created these masterpieces was lost, not to be rediscovered until the Industrial Revolution brought new understanding of metallurgy. What happened to the knowledge? Where did the craftsmen go? Why didn't this advanced technology spread and revolutionize medieval warfare? It's as if someone or something shared incredible technological knowledge with European smiths for a brief period, then withdrew it just as mysteriously as it had appeared. Modern attempts to recreate Ulfberht swords have met with mixed success. Even with access to modern materials and techniques, bladesmiths find it challenging to match the exact properties of the originals. The steel seems to possess qualities that go beyond mere chemical composition. There's something about the forging process that we still don't fully understand. Recent analysis using advanced scanning techniques has revealed microscopic structures within the steel that suggest the use of techniques similar to modern powder metallurgy, a process that wasn't officially invented until the 1940s. The implications are staggering. Either medieval smiths independently developed manufacturing techniques that wouldn't be invented for another 1,000 years, or they had access to knowledge from a source we haven't yet identified. The Ulfberht swords force us to confront an uncomfortable possibility that our understanding of medieval technology and capabilities is fundamentally flawed. These weapons represent a level of sophistication that doesn't fit the narrative of gradual technological progress that historians have constructed for us. And that raises the ultimate question. If medieval craftsmen could create steel superior to anything produced for the next 800 years, what else were they capable of? What other technologies did they possess that we've lost or simply refused to acknowledge? The Ulfberht swords stand as silent testimony to a forgotten chapter of human achievement, their razor-sharp edges cutting through our assumptions about the past and leaving us with more questions than answers. You know what's crazy? Most people will watch this, be amazed for 5 minutes, then forget about it completely. But you're different, aren't you? You actually want to understand what's really happening. That's why you need to subscribe so you can get more of these suppressed discoveries that could change everything we know about human history. High in the Indian Himalayas, where the air is so thin that every breath is a struggle and the landscape looks more like an alien world than anything on Earth, lies a glacial lake that harbors one of archaeology's most chilling mysteries. Roopkund Lake, sitting at an elevation of 16,470 feet above sea level, appears unremarkable from a distance. Just another pristine alpine lake frozen in time. But when the ice melts during the brief Himalayan summer, Roopkund reveals its horrifying secret. The lake bed is carpeted with human bones, hundreds and hundreds of skeletons lying in twisted, tortured positions as if death had come suddenly and violently to this remote corner of the world. Local shepherds have known about the bones for generations, calling the place Skeleton Lake and spinning tales of angry goddesses and cursed travelers. But it wasn't until 1942, when a British forest ranger named H.K. Madwell stumbled upon the site, that the outside world learned of this high-altitude charnel house. What Madwell found defied explanation. The lake, no more than 130 feet across at its widest point, contained the remains of at least 300 people, possibly many more. The skeletons weren't buried or arranged in any ceremonial fashion. They were scattered across the lake bed like debris from some unimaginable catastrophe. But here's what makes this discovery truly spine-chilling. The bones were perfectly preserved by the freezing temperatures and dry mountain air. Flesh still clung to some of the skulls, hair remained attached to scalps, and fragments of clothing and jewelry lay scattered among the remains. It was as if hundreds of people had died simultaneously and been flash-frozen in a moment of terror. The initial assumption was that these were the remains of Japanese soldiers who had died crossing the mountains during World War II. But as researchers began to examine the artifacts more closely, it became clear that these bones were far older than anyone had imagined. Radiocarbon dating revealed the shocking truth. The skeletons were approximately 1,200 years old, dating back to around 850 CE. This placed the deaths sometime during the 9th century, long before any known military campaigns or major population movements in the region. But that wasn't the strangest part. As forensic anthropologists studied the remains more carefully, they discovered something that sent chills down their spines. Many of the skulls showed evidence of severe trauma, not the kind of injuries you'd expect from battle or accident, but something far more unusual. The damage was concentrated on the tops and backs of the skulls, consistent with blunt force trauma from objects falling from above. But these weren't random injuries. They showed a consistent pattern that suggested the victims had been struck by round objects approximately 9 inches in diameter. Dr. Subhash Wallambi, the anthropologist who led the initial forensic examination, was baffled. "The injuries are very unusual," he noted. "They're not from weapons or tools, but from something spherical hitting the victims with tremendous force from directly above." As researchers pieced together the evidence, a terrifying picture began to emerge. The victims appeared to have been caught in the open around the lake when something began falling from the sky, something that struck them down with lethal force before they could seek shelter. Local folklore suddenly took on new significance. For centuries, The people of the region had told stories of the goddess Nanda Devi's anger being unleashed upon travelers who showed disrespect in her sacred mountains. According to legend, the goddess would rain down stones from the sky to punish those who violated the sanctity of her realm. But could ancient legends hold a clue to understanding what really happened at Roopkund Lake over a millennium ago? Further analysis of the remains revealed more puzzling details. The people who died at the lake came from at least two distinct populations. Some showed characteristics consistent with local Himalayan peoples, while others appeared to be from the Indian lowlands. DNA analysis confirmed that there were multiple genetic lineages represented among the victims, suggesting that this wasn't a single group that had traveled together. Even more mysteriously, the radiocarbon dating revealed that not all the deaths occurred at the same time. While the majority of the skeletons dated to around 850 CE, a smaller group appeared to be several centuries more recent. This suggested that whatever killed these people had happened more than once, claiming victims across multiple time periods. The artifacts found among the remains added another layer to the mystery. Most of the jewelry and clothing fragments were consistent with what you'd expect from medieval Indian pilgrims: simple iron spears, leather shoes, and bamboo staves used for walking. But some items seemed oddly out of place for people undertaking a religious pilgrimage. Among the remains were found artifacts that suggested at least some of the victims were carrying significant wealth, gold jewelry, precious stones, and ornate weapons that would have been worth fortunes in their time. Why would wealthy individuals be traveling through one of the most dangerous and remote regions of the Himalayas? The location itself deepens the mystery. Roopkund Lake sits along an ancient pilgrimage route that leads to the shrine of Nanda Devi, one of the most sacred sites in Hinduism. But the route is treacherous even by Himalayan standards, requiring weeks of difficult travel through terrain that claims lives even today with modern equipment and weather forecasting. What could have motivated hundreds of people to make this perilous journey? And why did so many of them meet their deaths at this particular spot? Recent expeditions to the lake have uncovered additional evidence that makes the mystery even more complex. Geological surveys have revealed that the area has experienced significant seismic activity over the centuries, with evidence of massive landslides and avalanches. Could natural disasters have been responsible for the deaths? But this explanation doesn't account for the specific nature of the skull injuries, which are consistent with impacts from spherical objects, not the angular rocks and debris you'd expect from landslides. The forensic evidence points to something far more unusual, something that fell from the sky with enough force to kill instantly but was uniform enough in size and shape to leave nearly identical injury patterns. Meteorologists have offered another possibility that seems straight out of science fiction, yet aligns perfectly with the physical evidence. The injuries are consistent with death by giant hailstones, ice balls large enough and heavy enough to crush human skulls upon impact. While this might sound impossible, the unique geography and weather patterns of the Himalayas can indeed produce hailstones of extraordinary size. The extreme altitude, combined with specific atmospheric conditions, can create hail larger than cricket balls. Historical records from the region document hailstorms that have killed livestock and destroyed buildings. But hailstones large enough to kill humans instantly? The size required to cause the injuries found at Roopkund would be unprecedented in recorded history. We're talking about chunks of ice the size of bowling balls falling from the sky with enough velocity to shatter bone. The more scientists study the Roopkund skeletons, the more questions arise. Why were so many people at this remote location when the deadly storm struck? How did they become trapped in the open with no possibility of shelter? And why do some of the remains show evidence of having been disturbed and redeposited, as if the lake had been used as a burial ground multiple times over the centuries? Recent DNA analysis has added yet another twist to the mystery. Some of the skeletons show genetic markers that are more consistent with Mediterranean populations than with any known Indian lineages. How did people from thousands of miles away end up dying at a sacred lake high in the Himalayas over 1,000 years ago? The answers continue to elude researchers, and each new discovery seems to raise more questions than it resolves. Roopkund Lake stands as a testament to the fact that our world still holds secrets that challenge our understanding of history, climate, and human migration patterns. As climate change causes the lake's ice to melt more frequently and extensively, new remains are being revealed each year. Each skeleton tells a story of tragedy, but together they paint a picture of an event so extraordinary, so impossible to fully comprehend, that it forces us to reconsider what we think we know about the past. The dead of Roopkund Lake carry their secrets with them, locked in bones that have defied time and preservation. But their silent testimony speaks to a truth that is both humbling and terrifying, that nature possesses forces so powerful and unpredictable that entire groups of people can vanish in an instant, leaving behind only questions that echo through the centuries. We're only 3 mysteries in, and I bet your mind is already blown. But here's what separates you from everyone else: you're still watching. Most people can't handle having their worldview challenged. If you're ready to go deeper down this rabbit hole and discover truths that will make your friends think you're crazy, subscribe now. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Our next discovery is in the misty hills outside Glasgow, Scotland. Beneath centuries of accumulated moss and weathering lies one of Europe's most enigmatic prehistoric monuments. The Cochno Stone stretches nearly 43 feet in length and 26 feet in width, making it one of the largest collections of rock art in Europe. But size isn't what makes this monument extraordinary. It's the intricate, mysterious symbols covering its surface that have left archaeologists and codebreakers utterly baffled for over a century. Discovered in 1887 by Reverend James Harvey, the Cochno Stone immediately captured the attention of Victorian scholars who recognized that they were looking at something far more complex than typical prehistoric art. The surface of the massive stone is covered with over 90 carved symbols, including spirals, cups, rings, and geometric patterns that seem to follow some kind of systematic arrangement. But here's what makes the Cochno Stone truly extraordinary: the symbols aren't random or decorative. They appear to follow mathematical relationships and geometric principles that suggest they were created according to a sophisticated understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and possibly even advanced mapping techniques. The most common symbols are cup and ring marks, circular depressions surrounded by concentric rings carved into the stone. These aren't unique to the Cochno Stone. Similar markings have been found on prehistoric monuments across Britain and Ireland. But nowhere else do they appear in such complex arrangements or with such apparent systematic organization. Dr. Alexander Thom, a professor of engineering at Oxford University who spent decades studying prehistoric British monuments, was fascinated by the mathematical precision evident in the Cochno Stone's layout. His measurements revealed that the symbols are positioned according to precise geometric relationships, with distances and angles that correspond to sophisticated mathematical concepts. Even more intriguingly, Thom discovered that many of the stone's measurements are based on what he termed the megalithic yard, a standardized unit of measurement that appears to have been used across prehistoric Britain and Ireland. The fact that this standardization existed suggests a level of cultural coordination and mathematical sophistication that challenges our understanding of Neolithic society. But the mystery deepens when we consider the possible astronomical connections. Several researchers have noted that the arrangement of symbols on the Cochno Stone appears to correlate with celestial phenomena. The positions of certain cup and ring marks align with the rising and setting points of significant stars and constellations as they would have appeared in the sky 5,000 years ago. Ronald Morris, who spent over 30 years studying the stone, believed that it functioned as a kind of prehistoric computer, encoding astronomical information that would have been crucial for agricultural planning and religious ceremonies. According to his analysis, the stone symbols track the movements of the sun, moon, and key stars throughout the year, creating what amounts to a permanent calendar carved in stone. But perhaps the most intriguing theory about the Cochno Stone comes from researchers who believe it might actually be a map, not of earthly territory, but of something far more extraordinary. The arrangement of symbols, when viewed from above, bears a striking resemblance to star charts and constellation maps. Could the stone be a representation of the night sky as seen by prehistoric observers? This possibility becomes even more fascinating when we consider that the stone includes symbols that don't appear on other prehistoric monuments in the region. Among the familiar cup and ring marks are more complex designs that look almost technological in nature, geometric patterns that resemble circuit boards or electronic diagrams when viewed with modern eyes. One of the most puzzling features of the Cochno Stone is what researchers call the keyhole symbol, a large oval depression connected to a smaller circular cup by a narrow channel. This unique design appears nowhere else in prehistoric British art, and its purpose remains completely unknown. Some researchers have suggested it might represent a doorway or portal, while others believe it could be a symbolic representation of astronomical phenomena. The precision of the stone's carving is remarkable for its age. The symbols are cut to uniform depths, with smooth, regular curves that would have required sophisticated tools and considerable skill to create. Analysis of the carving techniques suggests that multiple tools were used, including both stone and possibly metal implements, which would be highly unusual for the Neolithic period when the stone was supposedly created. Radiocarbon dating of organic material found in association with the stone suggests an age of approximately 5,000 years, placing its creation during the late Neolithic period. This was a time when Britain was supposedly populated by simple farming communities with basic stone tools and no written language. Yet the Cochno Stone demonstrates mathematical and astronomical knowledge that wouldn't be formally developed until thousands of years later. The stone's creators also displayed an understanding of surveying and site planning that seems impossibly advanced for their time. The monument is positioned to take advantage of natural sight lines across the surrounding landscape, and its orientation appears to be carefully calculated to align with celestial events. This level of planning suggests a sophisticated understanding of both astronomy and engineering. But here's where the mystery takes an even stranger turn. In the early 20th century, local authorities decided that the stone needed to be protected from vandalism and weathering. Their solution was to bury it completely under several feet of earth and turf, where it remained hidden for nearly a century. When archaeologists finally uncovered the stone again in 2015, they made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the academic community. The symbols weren't just preserved, they had somehow become more clearly defined during their time underground. Colors that hadn't been visible when the stone was first discovered were now apparent, revealing details that had been hidden for over a century. Even more remarkably, new symbols had apparently been revealed by the preservation process. Carvings that weren't documented in the original 1887 surveys were now clearly visible on the stone's surface. How is this possible? How do buried stone carvings become more distinct over time rather than weathering away? The answer might lie in the unique properties of the stone itself. Geological analysis has revealed that the Cochno Stone is composed of a type of sandstone that contains unusual mineral inclusions. These minerals appear to react differently to weathering than the surrounding stone, creating a natural highlighting effect that makes the carved symbols more visible over time. But this discovery raises even more questions about the stone's creators. How did Neolithic people know to choose a type of stone that would naturally preserve and enhance their carvings over millennia? Did they possess geological knowledge that allowed them to predict how their monument would age? Recent digital mapping of the stone using advanced 3D scanning technology has revealed additional layers of complexity that weren't visible to earlier researchers. The symbols appear to be interconnected by barely perceptible channels and grooves that create a network across the stone's entire surface. When these connections are traced digitally, they form patterns that look remarkably similar to modern circuit diagrams or computer network maps. Dr. Kenny Brophy from the University of Glasgow, who led the recent excavation, admits that the stone continues to defy explanation. Every time we think we're beginning to understand what we're looking at, we discover something new that changes everything, he notes. The level of sophistication is far beyond what we would expect from Neolithic Scotland. But perhaps the most intriguing discovery is what researchers found beneath the stone itself. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed a network of chambers and passages extending deep underground, directly beneath the carved symbols. These subsurface features appear to be artificial constructions, not natural geological formations. The underground chambers seem to correspond to specific symbols on the stone's surface, as if the carved markings are somehow connected to whatever lies buried below. Several of the chambers contain what appear to be stone-lined passages that extend for considerable distances underground, creating a complex network that mirrors the pattern of symbols above. Attempts to excavate these underground features have been frustrated by their depth and complexity. The few exploratory digs that have been conducted have revealed worked stone and evidence of sophisticated construction techniques, but the full extent of the underground network remains unknown. Local folklore adds another mysterious dimension to the Cochno Stone. For centuries, the area has been associated with stories of fairy roads, invisible pathways that supernatural beings supposedly use to travel across the landscape. According to tradition, these fairy roads follow specific routes that connect sacred sites and natural landmarks. Remarkably, when researchers mapped the supposed locations of these fairy roads based on local oral traditions, they discovered that the paths align almost perfectly with the geometric patterns carved on the Cochno Stone. It's as if the stone serves as a map of these invisible pathways, encoding in permanent form what was once preserved only in human memory. This connection between the carved symbols and local folklore suggests that the stone's meaning may have been partially preserved in oral tradition long after its original purpose was forgotten. But it also raises the possibility that the stone was created to mark or commemorate something that was already ancient when Neolithic people first encountered it. The Cochno Stone forces us to confront the possibility that our ancestors possessed knowledge and capabilities that we've systematically underestimated. The mathematical precision, astronomical alignments, and sophisticated planning evident in this monument suggest a level of intellectual achievement that doesn't fit our understanding of Neolithic society. But it also points to something even more profound: the possibility that human civilization has experienced cycles of advancement and decline that we haven't recognized in the archaeological record. Could the Cochno Stone be evidence of an earlier phase of human development, one that achieved sophisticated understanding of mathematics and astronomy before being lost to time? The stone sits in the Scottish countryside, its secrets partially revealed but far from fully understood. Each new technological advance in archaeological analysis reveals additional layers of complexity, suggesting that we've only begun to scratch the surface of what this monument has to tell us. And that leads us to the ultimate question about the Cochno Stone. If it really is a map or calendar or astronomical computer as researchers suspect, what was it mapping? What celestial events were so important that they needed to be permanently recorded in stone? And what happened to the knowledge and understanding that created this remarkable monument? In the gold mines of South Africa, buried beneath billions of years of rock and sediment, miners have been discovering objects that shouldn't exist. These aren't just unusual rocks or interesting geological formations. These are perfectly spherical artifacts that demonstrate a level of precision that challenges everything we understand about the deep history of our planet. Welcome to the mind-bending mystery of the Klerksdorp Spheres, objects so impossible, so perfectly crafted, that they force us to question whether intelligence existed on Earth long before life itself was supposed to have evolved beyond simple microorganisms. The Klerksdorp region of South Africa is famous for its mineral wealth, particularly its gold and uranium deposits. For over a century, miners have been digging deep into the earth here, following veins that stretch back to the very foundations of our planet. The rock formations they're excavating are ancient beyond imagination. We're talking about stone that was laid down during the Precambrian era, between 2.8 and 3 billion years ago. To put that time frame in perspective, these rocks were formed when Earth was still in its infancy. The atmosphere contained virtually no oxygen, the continents were just beginning to take shape, and the most complex life forms were simple single-celled organisms. Complex multicellular life wouldn't appear for another 2 billion years, and human ancestors wouldn't emerge until just a few million years ago. Yet from these impossibly ancient deposits, miners have recovered hundreds of metallic spheres that display characteristics that seem to defy natural explanation. Each sphere is approximately 1 to 4 inches in diameter, composed primarily of iron and nickel with traces of other metals. But it's not their composition that makes them extraordinary, it's their perfection. These spheres are so perfectly round that they approach geometric perfection. When measured with precision instruments, they show variations in roundness of less than 0.01 inches, a tolerance that would challenge modern manufacturing techniques. Many display parallel grooves running around their equators, as if they were machined on some cosmic lathe with incredible precision. Dr. Ralph Marks, a geologist who has studied the spheres extensively, describes them as absolutely perfect in terms of roundness and surface finishing. Using electron microscopy, he found that the grooves around many of the spheres show characteristics consistent with mechanical tooling rather than natural formation processes. But here's what makes this discovery truly mind-boggling. The rock formations containing these spheres have been dated using multiple independent methods, all confirming an age of approximately 2.8 billion years. The spheres aren't embedded in younger rock that somehow found its way into older formations. They're integral parts of the ancient stone matrix, formed at the same time as the surrounding material. The geological evidence is unambiguous. These objects were created and buried when the Earth was still a hostile, alien world where complex life was impossible. When the spheres were first discovered in the 1980s, geologists attempted to explain them as natural phenomena. Perhaps they were formed by volcanic processes, or created through some unusual form of mineral precipitation. But as more specimens were recovered and analyzed, these explanations became increasingly inadequate. Natural processes don't create perfect spheres with machined grooves. Volcanic activity produces irregular shapes with rough surfaces. Mineral precipitation creates crystalline structures that follow predictable patterns based on chemical composition. None of the known geological processes can account for the precision and consistency found in the Klerksdorp Spheres. Even more puzzling is the composition of the spheres themselves. While they're primarily iron and nickel elements that are common in meteorites, isotopic analysis reveals ratios that are inconsistent with extraterrestrial origin. These objects were definitely created on Earth, using terrestrial materials, but through processes that remain completely unknown. Some researchers have suggested that the spheres might be concretions, naturally occurring mineral formations that can sometimes achieve roughly spherical shapes. But concretions form through well-understood chemical processes that leave distinctive internal structures and surface characteristics. The Klerksdorp Spheres show none of these telltale signs. Instead, they display internal structures that are remarkably uniform and dense, with no evidence of the layered growth patterns you'd expect from natural mineral formation. X-ray crystallography reveals a metallic matrix that appears to have been formed under uniform temperature and pressure conditions, something that would be impossible in a natural geological environment. Perhaps most mysteriously, many of the spheres exhibit magnetic properties that seem to change over time. Some specimens that showed strong magnetic attraction when first discovered have gradually lost their magnetism over years of storage. Others have maintained consistent magnetic fields that don't correspond to any known natural magnetic minerals. Dr. J.R. McIver, a metallurgist who has examined dozens of the spheres, noted unusual structural properties that suggest they were created under controlled conditions. The internal grain structure is remarkably uniform, he observed, almost as if the metal was heated to precise temperatures and then cooled in a controlled manner. But controlled by what? The implications are staggering when you consider the timeline involved. If these spheres are artificial, and the evidence increasingly points in that direction, then they represent technology that existed on Earth nearly 3 billion years ago. That's not just before human civilization, it's before complex life of any kind was supposed to exist anywhere on our planet. Some researchers have proposed that the spheres might be evidence of an unknown civilization that existed in Earth's distant past, a technological society that arose and vanished long before conventional evolution had time to produce intelligent life. But this explanation raises as many questions as it answers. How could any civilization have survived in the hostile conditions of the Precambrian Earth? What happened to all the other evidence of their existence? And why are perfectly spherical objects with precision grooves the only artifacts that remain from this hypothetical ancient culture? Alternative theories become even more speculative. Could the spheres be evidence of extraterrestrial visitation during Earth's early history? Are they technological artifacts left behind by beings from other worlds who were monitoring our planet's development? The precision of their construction and their apparent artificial nature certainly fit this scenario. But perhaps the most unsettling possibility is that the spheres represent something beyond our current understanding of physics and reality itself. Their perfect geometry and mysterious properties might be indicators of processes or technologies that operate according to principles we haven't yet discovered. Recent attempts to study the spheres using advanced analytical techniques have yielded results that are both fascinating and troubling. Neutron activation analysis has revealed trace elements that shouldn't exist in natural terrestrial formations. Electron microscopy has identified microscopic structures within the metal that appear to be organized in ways that suggest purposeful design rather than random crystallization. Most disturbing of all, several research teams have reported equipment malfunctions and unexpected readings when attempting to analyze the spheres. Magnetic field detectors have registered fluctuating readings that don't correspond to the sphere's apparent magnetic properties. Spectroscopic analysis has produced results that vary between identical specimens, as if the objects themselves are somehow changing at the molecular level. The South African government has placed restrictions on the export and study of the spheres, citing their unique archaeological significance. But some researchers suspect that the real reason for these restrictions is far more unsettling, that the spheres possess properties that could have implications for our understanding of physics, technology, and the very nature of reality. As mining operations in the Klerksdorp region continue, more spheres are being discovered every year. Each new find adds to the growing collection of evidence that something impossible was happening on Earth billions of years ago. The spheres sit in museums and research facilities around the world, their perfect curves and mysterious grooves challenging visitors to explain how such objects could exist. The Klerksdorp Spheres force us to confront the possibility that our understanding of Earth's history is fundamentally incomplete. They suggest that intelligence, technology, and purpose may have existed on our planet long before we thought it possible. And they raise the ultimate question that keeps researchers awake at night. If we're wrong about this, what else about our past have we gotten completely wrong? In the end, the spheres remain what they've always been: perfect, inexplicable, and utterly impossible according to everything we think we know about the history of our world. They're artifacts from a time that shouldn't have been able to produce artifacts, created with precision that shouldn't have existed, by someone or something that challenges every assumption we've made about the deep past of our planet. In the scorching deserts of southern Iraq, where the ancient Euphrates River once brought life to the cradle of civilization, archaeologists have uncovered artifacts that challenge everything we thought we knew about the dawn of human culture. These aren't the familiar treasures of Babylonian or Sumerian art that we've come to associate with ancient Mesopotamia. These are something far older, far stranger, and far more unsettling. Welcome to the mystery of the Ubaid Statues, figurines that depict beings so unusual, so apparently non-human, that they force us to question whether the earliest human civilizations might have had contact with intelligence that didn't originate on this planet. The Ubaid culture flourished in Mesopotamia between 6500 and 3800 BCE, making it one of the oldest known civilizations in human history. These were the people who first developed irrigation systems, established permanent settlements, and laid the groundwork for everything we associate with advanced human society. They were innovators, pioneers who transformed the harsh Mesopotamian landscape into the fertile foundation upon which later civilizations would build. But among the pottery, tools, and architectural remains of Al-Ubaid settlements, archaeologists have discovered a collection of figurines that seem to tell a very different story about this ancient culture. These statues, carved with remarkable skill from clay and stone, depict humanoid figures with distinctly non-human characteristics. The most striking feature of these figurines is their heads. Instead of normal human proportions, the Al-Ubaid statues display dramatically elongated skulls that come to sharp points at the top. But even more unsettling are their faces, or rather, what should be their faces. These beings have no recognizable human features. Instead of eyes, nose, and mouth, they display what can only be described as reptilian characteristics. Large, almond-shaped eye sockets dominate their faces, while their mouths are mere slits that give them an otherworldly, almost serpentine appearance. The bodies of the figurines are equally strange. While generally humanoid in form, they display proportions that don't match normal human anatomy. The limbs are often elongated, the torsos unnaturally thin, and many figures appear to be holding objects or tools that don't correspond to any known Al-Ubaid artifacts. But here's what makes these statues truly extraordinary: they aren't crude primitive art or abstract representations. These are sophisticated sculptures created with considerable skill and attention to detail. The craftsmanship is remarkable, demonstrating a level of artistic ability that rivals much later civilizations. Even more intriguingly, the figurines appear to represent a consistent type or species of being. The facial features, body proportions, and overall appearance are remarkably uniform across different statues found at various Al-Ubaid sites. This isn't the work of individual artists interpreting mythological creatures in their own style. This appears to be realistic portraiture of actual beings that the Al-Ubaid people encountered. Dr. Anton Parks, a researcher who has studied the figurines extensively, notes that they display characteristics that are consistent across the entire collection. The level of detail and consistency suggests these aren't imaginative creations, he observes. They appear to be representations of real beings that the Al-Ubaid people knew and interacted with. The implications are staggering. If these statues are indeed realistic portrayals rather than mythological art, then the earliest human civilization was in contact with beings that were distinctly non-human. But who or what were these entities, and what was the nature of their relationship with ancient Mesopotamian people? Some researchers have suggested that the figurines might represent deities or mythological figures from Al-Ubaid religion. Ancient cultures often depicted their gods with non-human characteristics to emphasize their otherworldly nature. But this explanation becomes problematic when we examine the context in which the statues were found. Many of the figurines were discovered in domestic settings, in homes, workshops, and everyday locations rather than temples or ceremonial sites. This suggests they weren't religious objects but rather representations of beings that were part of daily life in Al-Ubaid society. Even more puzzling are the figurines that appear to show these beings interacting with normal humans. Several statues depict scenes where the elongated skull entities are engaged in what appears to be teaching or guidance activities, standing alongside figures with normal human proportions. Could these statues be documenting actual historical events? Contact between early humans and beings from elsewhere? The possibility sounds like science fiction, but the archaeological evidence is surprisingly compelling. Ancient Sumerian texts, which developed from Al-Ubaid culture, contain numerous references to beings called the Anunnaki, entities who supposedly came from the sky and taught early humans the arts of civilization. According to these accounts, the Anunnaki were responsible for introducing agriculture, mathematics, astronomy, and other advanced knowledge to primitive human societies. The descriptions of the Anunnaki in Sumerian literature bear striking resemblances to the beings depicted in the Al-Ubaid figurines. They are described as tall, thin beings with enlarged heads and distinctive facial features that set them apart from humans. They are portrayed as teachers and rulers who guided human development during the earliest phases of civilization. But perhaps most intriguingly, Sumerian texts describe the Anunnaki as beings who came from another world, specifically from a planet called Nibiru that follows a long elliptical orbit around our sun. According to these ancient accounts, the Anunnaki established colonies on Earth to mine gold and other resources, using primitive humans as a labor force. While mainstream archaeology dismisses these texts as mythology, the Al-Ubaid figurines provide physical evidence that early Mesopotamian people were familiar with beings that match the descriptions found in later Sumerian literature. The consistency between the artistic representations and the written accounts is remarkable. Modern analysis of the figurines using advanced techniques has revealed additional details that weren't visible to earlier researchers. High-resolution imaging has shown that many of the statues contain incredibly fine details, texture on the skin, individual fingers and toes, and even what appear to be clothing or ornamental decorations. Perhaps most remarkably, several of the figurines appear to be holding objects that look surprisingly technological for their age. Some clutch items that resemble modern tools or instruments, while others seem to be manipulating devices that don't correspond to any known Al-Ubaid artifacts. One particularly intriguing figurine appears to be holding what looks like a modern handheld device, complete with what might be interpreted as a screen or display panel. Another seems to be wearing something that resembles modern headgear or possibly some kind of breathing apparatus. These technological elements become even more significant when we consider the advanced knowledge that suddenly appeared in Mesopotamian civilization. The Al-Ubaid people and their Sumerian successors developed sophisticated understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering seemingly out of nowhere. Their knowledge of planetary movements, mathematical concepts, and architectural principles was far in advance of what we would expect from a newly emerging civilization. Could the Al-Ubaid figurines be documenting the source of this advanced knowledge? Were early humans taught these skills by the beings depicted in the statues? Recent genetic research has added another dimension to the mystery. Studies of ancient DNA from Mesopotamian populations have revealed genetic markers that don't match expected patterns of human evolution and migration. Some genetic sequences appear to be significantly older than they should be based on current models of human development. Even more puzzling, some DNA samples from the region contain sequences that don't match any known human or animal genomes. While contamination or degradation could explain some unusual readings, the consistency of these anomalous genetic markers across multiple samples suggests they might represent something more significant. The Al-Ubaid culture eventually evolved into the Sumerian civilization, which became the foundation for all subsequent Mesopotamian societies. But as human civilization developed and became more complex, references to the strange beings depicted in the Al-Ubaid figurines gradually disappeared from the archaeological record. It's as if contact with these entities ended at some point, leaving only memories that eventually became mythology. The beings who may have guided early human development withdrew, leaving their former students to continue the work of civilization on their own. The Al-Ubaid statues remain on display in museums around the world, their strange faces staring out at visitors with expressions that seem both alien and oddly familiar. They represent one of archaeology's most unsettling mysteries, physical evidence that our earliest ancestors may not have been alone as they took their first steps toward civilization. And that raises the ultimate question that these ancient figurines force us to confront. If humans received guidance and knowledge from non-human intelligence at the dawn of civilization, what happened to our teachers? Where did they go, and why did they leave us to continue the journey alone? Stop for a second and think about this. You've now seen evidence that could prove we've never been alone on this planet. While billions of people are living in ignorance, you're one of the few who's seen the truth. But here's the problem. YouTube's algorithm buries content like this. If you don't subscribe and hit that notification bell right now, you might never see revelations like this again. Don't let them keep you in the dark. In the dusty archives of the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, Turkey, a Turkish naval officer made a discovery in 1929 that would shake the foundations of our understanding of ancient geographical knowledge. What Admiral Pyri Reis found was more than just an old map. It was a document that seemed to prove that someone, centuries before the official discovery of Antarctica, possessed detailed and accurate knowledge of the southern continent's coastline. But here's what makes this discovery truly extraordinary. The map shows Antarctica as it exists beneath its ice sheet, a geographical reality that wasn't confirmed by modern science until the 1950s, when ground-penetrating radar and seismic studies revealed the true shape of the continent hidden beneath miles of ice. The Pyri Reis map, as it came to be known, was created in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Pyri Reis. According to notations on the map itself, Pyri Reis compiled his work from over 20 source maps, some of which he claimed dated back to the time of Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC. At first glance, the map appears to show the coastlines of Western Africa and Eastern South America with remarkable accuracy for its time. But it's the southern portion of the map that has caused decades of controversy and heated debate among historians, geographers, and archaeologists. The southern landmass depicted on the Pyri Reis map corresponds precisely to the northern coastline of Antarctica, but not as it appears today covered in ice. Instead, the map shows detailed geographical features, bays, rivers, and mountain ranges that match the subglacial topography of Antarctica as revealed by modern scientific surveys. Professor Charles Hapgood of Keene College was the first to recognize the true significance of this correspondence. In the 1960s, he conducted a detailed analysis comparing the Pyri Reis map with modern surveys of Antarctica's hidden coastline. The results were astounding. The ancient map was not only accurate, it was more detailed in some areas than contemporary scientific surveys. But here's the problem. Antarctica has been covered by ice sheets for at least 6,000 years, and possibly much longer according to most geological estimates. The last time the continent's coastline was ice-free and visible for mapping was thousands of years before any known civilization possessed the technology for long-distance ocean navigation. How could a 16th-century Turkish admiral have access to geographical information about Antarctica that predated the existence of advanced human civilization? And how could his ancient source maps show details of the continent that weren't confirmed by modern science until the mid-20th century? The mystery deepens when we examine the mathematical precision of the map's projection. The Pyri Reis map uses a sophisticated trigonometric projection that accurately represents the curved surface of the Earth on a flat surface. This type of mathematical cartography requires advanced understanding of spherical geometry and was supposedly not developed until centuries after the map was created. Even more remarkable is the map's accuracy in depicting longitude lines. Determining longitude accurately was one of the greatest challenges in navigation and cartography until the development of precise chronometers in the 18th century. Yet the Pyri Reis map shows longitude with a precision that rivals modern surveying techniques. Captain Lorenzo Burrows of the U.S. Navy Hydrographic Office conducted a detailed technical analysis of the map in the 1960s. His conclusions were startling. The geographical detail shown in the lower part of the map agrees very remarkably with the results of the seismic profile made across the top of the ice cap by the Swedish-British-Norwegian Antarctic expedition of 1949. In other words, a 16th-century map based on ancient sources was showing geographical details of Antarctica that weren't confirmed by modern science until 4 centuries later. But the Pyri Reis map isn't the only ancient document that displays impossible geographical knowledge. The Orontius Phineus map of 1531 shows Antarctica as a complete continent with detailed interior features, rivers, and mountains. The Mercator map of 1569 depicts the southern continent with geographical accuracy that wouldn't be achieved by official exploration until the 20th century. These maps collectively suggest that someone in the ancient past possessed comprehensive knowledge of Antarctica's geography during a time when the continent was ice-free and accessible for detailed mapping. But who could have accomplished such an extensive survey thousands of years before the development of advanced navigation techniques? Some researchers have suggested that an unknown advanced civilization existed in the distant past, one that possessed sophisticated maritime capabilities and global geographical knowledge. This hypothetical civilization would have to have existed during the last ice age, when sea levels were much lower and Antarctica was potentially ice-free. But evidence for such a civilization is virtually non-existent in the archaeological record. If an advanced maritime culture had the capability to map Antarctica in detail, they would have left other traces of their technological sophistication. Where are their ships, their tools, their settlements? Alternative theories become even more speculative. Could the ancient maps be based on information gathered from aerial surveillance? The level of detail and accuracy depicted in some of these charts would be difficult to achieve through ground-based surveying alone, especially in Antarctica's harsh conditions. But aerial mapping in the ancient world would require technology that was supposedly not developed until the modern era. Could ancient peoples have possessed flight capabilities that we've lost or forgotten? Some researchers point to ancient texts and artwork that seem to describe flying machines and aerial perspectives on geographical features. The ancient Sanskrit texts of India describe the manas, flying vehicles capable of long-distance travel and reconnaissance. While mainstream scholarship interprets these as mythological or symbolic descriptions, some researchers suggest they might represent actual technological capabilities that existed in the distant past. Even more intriguingly, several ancient cultures have artwork and carvings that seem to show aerial views of geographical features. The Nazca lines in Peru can only be properly appreciated from the air, suggesting that their creators had some method of achieving aerial perspective. Could similar capabilities have been used to create the accurate geographical surveys shown in the ancient Antarctic maps? Recent advances in ice core analysis have provided additional context for the mystery. Studies of Antarctic ice cores have revealed that the continent has experienced several periods of warming and ice reduction over the past 10,000 years. During some of these warmer periods, significant portions of Antarctica's coastline may indeed have been ice-free and accessible for mapping. But even these findings don't resolve the fundamental mystery. While Antarctica may have been partially ice-free during certain periods, these warming events occurred long before any known human civilization had developed the maritime technology necessary for long-distance ocean navigation and detailed cartographic surveying. Dr. J.H. Mallory, who assisted Professor Hapgood in analyzing the ancient maps, reached a troubling conclusion. These maps indicate that some ancient people had a sophisticated knowledge of the Earth that is only now being rediscovered by modern science. The implications challenge our entire understanding of human technological development. The ancient maps of Antarctica force us to confront several unsettling possibilities. Either human civilization is far older and more advanced than we currently believe, or we received geographical information from a source that possessed capabilities we don't yet understand. The accuracy and detail of these maps suggest they weren't based on speculation or mythology, but on actual surveying and exploration. Someone in the ancient past had comprehensive knowledge of Antarctica's geography and the technological capability to map it accurately. But perhaps most disturbing of all is what happened to this knowledge. If ancient peoples possessed sophisticated geographical understanding and maritime capabilities, why was this knowledge lost? What catastrophe or change caused an apparent regression in human technological capabilities? The ancient maps of Antarctica remain one of cartography's greatest mysteries, their precise lines and accurate details serving as silent testimony to knowledge that shouldn't have existed. They challenge our assumptions about human history and technological development while raising questions about the sources of ancient wisdom that continue to elude easy answers. As we continue to explore Antarctica with modern technology, each new discovery seems to confirm the accuracy of these impossible ancient maps, adding weight to the growing evidence that our understanding of the past is far from complete. High above the ancient Incan capital of Cusco, Peru, on a hillside that commands sweeping views of the Sacred Valley, stands what may be the most technically impressive stone construction in human history. The fortress of Sacsayhuamán isn't just another example of remarkable ancient architecture. It's a technological achievement that challenges our understanding of what was possible with pre-industrial tools and techniques. But here's what makes Sacsayhuamán truly extraordinary. The precision of its construction surpasses what modern engineers can achieve using contemporary methods. We're not talking about impressive stonework that was remarkable for its time. We're talking about masonry that exceeds the capabilities of 21st century technology. The fortress walls consist of massive limestone blocks, some weighing over 200 tons, fitted together with such precision that you literally cannot slide a knife blade between the joints. The stones are cut and shaped with tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters, and they're assembled in complex interlocking patterns that create structures of incredible strength and stability. To appreciate the magnitude of this achievement, consider that the largest stones in Sacsayhuamán are heavier than those used in the Great Pyramid of Giza, yet they've been cut and fitted with precision that the Egyptian builders never achieved. The joints between blocks are so tight and accurate that the walls have survived centuries of earthquakes that have leveled more conventional buildings throughout the region. But the precision goes far beyond simple tight-fitting joints. The blocks are shaped in complex three-dimensional forms that interlock with adjacent stones in multiple directions simultaneously. Each stone is a unique shape that fits perfectly with all of its neighbors, creating a puzzle of incredible complexity that required mathematical and engineering skills we're only beginning to understand. Dr. Jean-Pierre Protzen, a professor of architecture at the University of California, Berkeley, who has spent decades studying Incan stonework, admits that the precision of Sacsayhuamán exceeds modern capabilities. Using contemporary methods and tools, we cannot achieve the level of accuracy demonstrated in these walls, he states. The precision is literally beyond what we can accomplish today. This isn't just academic hyperbole. Modern construction techniques, even with laser-guided cutting tools and computer-controlled machinery, typically achieve tolerances measured in millimeters. The stones at Sacsayhuamán are fitted with tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters, and this precision is maintained across joints that extend for many feet. Even more remarkably, the precision isn't limited to flat surfaces. Many of the blocks are shaped with complex curves and angles that match perfectly with adjoining stones. The mathematical calculations required to achieve this level of three-dimensional precision would challenge modern computer-aided design systems. The construction techniques used at Sacsayhuamán also defy explanation. The massive blocks had to be quarried from sites several miles away, transported across difficult terrain, then lifted and positioned with incredible accuracy. The largest stones are so heavy that moving them would require massive cranes and specialized equipment even today. Yet according to mainstream archaeology, the Incans built Sacsayhuamán using bronze tools, wooden levers, and rope made from plant fibers. They supposedly had no wheeled vehicles, no iron tools, no advanced mathematics, and no written language for recording complex engineering specifications. How did they achieve precision that we cannot match using tools that we consider primitive? The mystery deepens when we examine the cutting techniques used on the stones. Microscopic analysis reveals that the surfaces were finished using methods that don't match any known ancient techniques. The stones show no tool marks from chiseling or hammering, and the surfaces have a smoothness and consistency that suggests they were shaped using processes that we don't fully understand. Some researchers have suggested that the Incans used some form of chemical treatment to soften the stone before shaping it. Local legends speak of plants that could make rock as soft as clay, allowing it to be molded into desired shapes before hardening again. While this sounds fantastical, Chemical analysis of the stones has revealed trace elements that don't occur naturally in the local limestone. Dr. Alfredo Gamarra, a Peruvian researcher who studied Sacsayhuamán for over 30 years, believed that the construction involved technology that has been lost to history. His analysis of the stonework led him to conclude that the builders possessed knowledge of materials science and engineering that exceeded modern capabilities. But the technological mysteries of Sacsayhuamán extend beyond just the stonework. The fortress is built according to sophisticated engineering principles that demonstrate advanced understanding of seismic engineering. The walls are designed to flex and move during earthquakes without losing structural integrity, a capability that wasn't incorporated into modern buildings until the 20th century. The foundation systems beneath the walls show evidence of planning and engineering that required comprehensive understanding of soil mechanics and load distribution. The builders somehow knew exactly how to prepare the ground to support structures of incredible weight while maintaining stability over centuries. Recent ground-penetrating radar surveys have revealed that the visible walls are only a small portion of a much larger construction project. Underground chambers, passages, and foundation systems extend deep into the hillside, creating a complex that is far more extensive than what appears on the surface. These underground features are constructed with the same impossible precision as the visible walls. Stone blocks weighing tons are fitted together perfectly in underground chambers that show no evidence of settling or structural movement over the centuries. But perhaps the most unsettling discovery is that Sacsayhuamán appears to be much older than mainstream archaeology claims. While the visible structures are attributed to the Incan Empire of the 15th century, analysis of the construction techniques and weathering patterns suggests that at least some portions of the complex are much more ancient. The Incans themselves claimed that they did not build the most impressive portions of Sacsayhuamán. According to their oral traditions, the most sophisticated stonework was already ancient when their empire began. They claimed to have built only the upper portions of the walls, using much cruder construction techniques that are clearly visible when compared to the earlier work. This raises the possibility that Sacsayhuamán represents the work of multiple civilizations separated by centuries or even millennia. The precision stonework might be the product of an unknown earlier culture that possessed technological capabilities far exceeding those of the Incans. Local Quechua traditions speak of the Viracocha, godlike beings who came from the sky and taught ancient peoples the arts of civilization, including advanced stoneworking techniques. According to these legends, the Viracocha possessed tools and knowledge that allowed them to shape stone as if it were soft clay. While mainstream archaeology dismisses these stories as mythology, the physical evidence at Sacsayhuamán suggests that someone did indeed possess technological capabilities that we don't understand. The precision and sophistication of the stonework exceeds what should have been possible using the tools and techniques available to pre-Columbian civilizations. Modern attempts to replicate even small sections of Sacsayhuamán stonework have met with limited success. Engineers using laser-guided cutting equipment and computer-controlled machinery struggle to achieve the precision and perfect fit demonstrated in the ancient walls. The mathematical complexity alone would require advanced computational capabilities that supposedly didn't exist until the modern era. The construction site itself adds another layer to the mystery. The builders somehow managed to transport and position massive blocks with perfect accuracy on an irregular, sloping terrain. This required not just incredible precision in shaping each stone, but also sophisticated surveying and engineering calculations to ensure that the entire structure would be level and stable. Analysis of the work surfaces around Sacsayhuamán has revealed evidence of construction techniques that don't match any known ancient methods. The ground shows signs of having been prepared using processes that appear to involve extremely high temperatures that would require industrial-level technology to achieve. Dr. Christopher Dunn, an engineer who has studied ancient construction techniques around the world, believes that Sacsayhuamán represents evidence of lost technology. The precision and sophistication demonstrated here suggests the use of advanced tools and techniques that we've somehow forgotten, he argues. This isn't just impressive ancient craftsmanship, this is technology. But perhaps the most compelling evidence for lost technology comes from the blocks themselves. Many of the stones at Sacsayhuamán show evidence of having been molded or cast rather than cut from solid rock. The internal structure and crystal patterns are consistent with stone that was heated to extremely high temperatures then cooled in controlled conditions. This possibility has led some researchers to suggest that the builders possessed some form of advanced materials technology, perhaps the ability to break down stone at the molecular level and reconstitute it in desired shapes. While this sounds like science fiction, it would explain both the precision of the construction and the mysterious lack of tool marks on the finished surfaces. Recent analysis using electron microscopy has revealed microscopic structures within the stones that support this theory. The crystal patterns and mineral arrangements are unlike anything found in naturally occurring limestone, suggesting that the rock has been subjected to processes that altered its fundamental structure. Even more intriguingly, some stones show evidence of having been welded together at the joints. The interfaces between blocks display characteristics that suggest the surfaces were somehow fused at the molecular level, creating joints that are stronger than the stones themselves. The implications of this discovery are staggering. If the builders of Sacsayhuamán possessed technology for manipulating matter at the molecular level, they were working with capabilities that were only beginning to develop in the 21st century. We're talking about nanotechnology and materials science concepts that are at the cutting edge of modern research. The fortress also incorporates engineering principles that weren't formally understood until relatively recently. The walls are designed using what modern engineers recognize as base isolation techniques, construction methods that allow structures to survive earthquake forces by moving as unified systems rather than rigid structures. This seismic engineering was so effective that Sacsayhuamán has survived centuries of major earthquakes that have destroyed more conventional buildings throughout the region. The 1950 Cusco earthquake, which measured 7.5 on the Richter scale, caused extensive damage throughout the city but left the ancient walls of Sacsayhuamán completely unaffected. But the mysteries of Sacsayhuamán extend beyond just construction techniques. The fortress is aligned with astronomical phenomena in ways that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics. The walls are oriented to track the movements of the sun, moon, and key constellations throughout the year. The precision of these alignments requires mathematical calculations that would have been impossible without advanced knowledge of spherical geometry and trigonometry. The builders somehow possessed astronomical knowledge that allowed them to incorporate complex, celestial relationships into the physical structure of the fortress. Recent discoveries using ground-penetrating radar and 3D mapping technology have revealed that Sacsayhuamán is part of a much larger complex that extends throughout the Cusco region. Underground tunnels, chambers, and additional structures create a network that connects multiple ancient sites across the sacred valley. This network shows the same impossible precision as the visible walls. Underground passages are cut through solid rock with laser-straight accuracy, and the connecting chambers are constructed with the same perfect stonework found at the surface. The scale and sophistication of this underground system suggests a level of planning and engineering coordination that rivals modern infrastructure projects. The more we learn about Sacsayhuamán, the more it challenges our understanding of what was possible in the ancient world. Every new technological analysis reveals additional layers of sophistication that push the boundaries of what we thought ancient peoples could achieve. But perhaps most disturbing of all is what the existence of Sacsayhuamán implies about technological progress. If ancient builders could achieve precision that exceeds modern capabilities, what happened to that knowledge? How did humanity lose access to technologies that were clearly superior to what we possess today? The fortress of Sacsayhuamán stands as silent testimony to a level of technological achievement that we're still struggling to understand. Its massive walls continue to defy our attempts at explanation, challenging every assumption we've made about the linear progression of human technological development. As we reach the end of our journey through these archaeological mysteries, one thing becomes crystal clear: we're not looking at isolated anomalies or curious coincidences. These discoveries form a pattern, a web of impossibilities that points to a conclusion that mainstream academia seems reluctant to acknowledge. Our understanding of human history is fundamentally incomplete. From the Dropa Stones with their microscopic hieroglyphics telling tales of star visitors, to the Ulfberht swords forged with steel technology that wouldn't be rediscovered for centuries, from the mass grave at Roopkund Lake with its victims of an impossible celestial assault, to the Klerksdorp Spheres crafted with geometric perfection billions of years before complex life existed. Each mystery challenges not just our assumptions about specific time periods, but our entire framework for understanding the past. Each of these mysteries, considered in isolation, might be dismissed as an anomaly, a misinterpretation, or a hoax. But taken together, they paint a picture that's impossible to ignore: evidence of knowledge, technology, and capabilities that existed when they shouldn't have, created by people who supposedly couldn't have possessed such abilities. Perhaps most unsettling is the pattern of knowledge appearing and then disappearing throughout history. The advanced metallurgy of the Ulfberht swords was lost for centuries. The geographical knowledge shown in ancient maps of Antarctica vanished from human understanding. The construction techniques used at Sacsayhuamán were forgotten, leaving even the Incans unable to replicate the work of their predecessors. This suggests that advanced knowledge and technology have been present throughout human history, but in cycles rather than as a steady progression of development. Capabilities that took us centuries to redevelop were somehow available to ancient peoples, then lost again, only to be rediscovered by later civilizations. What could cause such cycles? Natural catastrophes that destroyed advanced civilizations? Deliberate suppression of knowledge by religious or political authorities? Or perhaps the periodic withdrawal of guidance from non-human intelligence that had been helping human development? The answers continue to elude us, but the questions themselves are transforming our understanding of what it means to be human and what our place might be in a larger cosmic context. These archaeological mysteries force us to confront the possibility that we are not the first technological civilization to exist on Earth, and perhaps not the only intelligence that has influenced the development of human culture. These archaeological mysteries serve as reminders that despite all our scientific advancement and technological capabilities, there are still profound secrets hidden in our past, waiting to be uncovered and understood. The truth is out there, embedded in the stones beneath our feet, encoded in the artifacts left behind by our predecessors, waiting for us to develop the wisdom and courage necessary to uncover its secrets. And perhaps, when we finally understand the full scope of these mysteries, we'll discover that the greatest mystery of all is not where we came from, but where we're going, and who might be waiting for us when we get there. You've made it this far, which means you're part of a very small group of people who can actually handle the truth about our hidden history. While others are content with lies and half-truths, you demand the real story. But here's the harsh reality: if you don't subscribe right now, you'll go back to your normal life and slowly forget everything you've learned today. Don't let that happen. Hit subscribe because the rabbit hole goes much deeper, and you deserve to know just how extraordinary our past really is.